president of the British Chamber of Commerce in Spain, and he joins us now from Barcelona. So good to see you, sir. Why are the markets so convinced that this crisis is going to be resolved, do you think?
Well, Ian, that's gone along with what the Spanish government said today. They said that we're back to business as usual, that Spain will grow at over 3% GDP year on year over the full year. So at the moment in Madrid, everyone's feeling relaxed. Not so much the case here in Barcelona.
So what have you been telling British businesses based in Spain and in Catalonia in particular?
Well, that we need to talk to governments and make sure that we finish with the uncertainty as soon as possible. We looked over the cliff edge on Friday and thankfully didn't fall off it, but we're still to know what the future path is. If we've seen the peak of uncertainty, if we now move towards democratic elections in December and then a negotiated settlement so that Catalonia is comfortable within Spain in the current day, then we've seen the worst of it and we'll just see slow growth within a relatively rich region. If there is further disruption, if there is further uncertainty, if we see civil disobedience over the next few months, or we're just kicking the can down the road, then British companies, which the UK is the third largest direct investor in Catalonia, as well as other foreign countries, are going to start making other investment decisions.
But should we be worried about British investment in Catalonia? You say they were the third largest investor in the region. I mean, is that investment in danger at all?
Well, it depends on the sectors. A lot of the British investment in Catalonia is in long-term sectors, manufacturing, especially the automotive sector, publishing, a lot of service industries. So they won't be affected in the short term. We'll only see effects on that if there's continued disruption from now on. But there are a lot of small and medium companies invested in Catalonia. Obviously, they're planning to cope with Brexit, and they're worried that if there isn't a settlement, if Catalonia does eventually become independent, then they'll be outside of the European Union on both ends. So the sectors we're seeing short-term damage in are the ones related to foreign flows of revenues, so tourism in particular. Those companies are worried.
And some 1,700 companies which were based in Catalonia have now relocated to other parts of Spain. I mean, that sounds fairly sensible, but does it put them at risk of double taxation potentially in future?
Well, it puts them at risk of double taxation in the event of the cliff edge scenario. That's particularly why those companies moved. At the moment, it's only the registration that's moved. So those companies were worried that an independent Catalonia that tried to implement its independence, as opposed to the symbolic political declaration that we saw on Friday, would mean that Catalonia would start levying taxes, would start putting a freeze on capital. So that's why a lot of registered head offices moved, and also companies were moving their funds to Madrid-based banks. Now, jobs haven't followed so far. It's too soon for that. So if we do see that things are calming down, that there is a path to a negotiated solution, I think at the end of the day there won't be too much damage. And those companies, essentially, they left because they wanted to mitigate the risk.
Now, notwithstanding the statistics that I trotted out prior to you coming on air, it's not widely known that whilst people talk about Catalonia as being a relatively wealthy area, there are parts of Spain that have a higher GDP per capita. I mean, the Basque Country, Navarre and Madrid are all wealthier on that measure, for example. Are we overdoing the importance of Catalonia to the Spanish economy?
No, I don't think we are. It's very sectorial. Madrid has a very wealthy economy, obviously, but it's very services-based. It's very based on multinationals. What we have in Catalonia is an industrial base that's very well established, that's very large. We've also got big banks, of course. It is fundamental to the Spanish economy. If you measure it by GDP per capita, obviously, it's quite a large and populous region as well. But certainly it is very substantial, not just within Spain, but within Europe. It's a very big region. It's
of course, a key manufacturing centre rather than a services centre like other parts of Spain.
Yes, absolutely. It's also growing a reputation within technologies. There's been a lot more innovation within Catalonia than other areas of Spain. It's sold itself as a startup hub, and there's a lot of synergies there with the UK, obviously. They've been attracting a lot of talent, and that's one of the things that's concerning British companies invested in Catalonia, whether they'll still have the talent flows and be able to import the skill sets that they'll need, especially within that technology area.
All right, Christopher Dottie, we've got to leave it there, I'm afraid. Thanks very much for joining me. It's good to see you.